All right, guys, I'm getting a lot of requests for this. We are talking fantasy football keepers in this video. I'm going to give you guys everything you need to know on who to keep for 2023, including 10. I got top 10 players that I really like for this year, but also a practical strategy on how to select that keeper on your roster. No matter where you are, guys, in the year, you got to, sometimes you got to make a decision, right? If it's April, if it's February, you're deciding, you're thinking. Now I'm going to clear that up for you when it comes to keeper talk, all right? So Dynasty Leagues keeper, I'm going to clear that up for you. Now, I used to be in a league where we had 4 keepers, so I'm really good at projecting. That's what I do better than anyone else, is project forward. Some people tend to keep players that are on a decline. I'm going to make sure that that's not you. So top 10 keepers for 2023, but also, guys, very, very important, how to select those keepers, because that's really going to make or break your team, and you don't want to be wasting early round draft picks and keeping players, because, it depends. Every league is different, right? Sometimes you keep a player, you maybe lose a first-round pick or a second-round pick, or, you have 3 keepers, you lose your first 3 rounds. So you want to make sure those keepers are properly selected. So this video is going to cover you guys, again, in keeper strategy, fantasy football draft strategy, when it comes to dynasty and keepers. This is a very important episode. I'm going to give you guys 10 players, again, for 2023. Before I get into this, guys, of course, make sure you guys subscribe, thumbs up. We go year-round. Make sure you guys join the Patreon group. I've linked it below. Everything you guys need below, guys. Discord group, Patreon below. But also head on over to Hooters.com. Use code FFC20. That's the code you're going to use, guys, upon checkout. Takeout or delivery, guys, you save $10 on an order of $30 or more on takeout or delivery. FFC20 is the code you want to use. They've got football bundles on right now, the time of this recording. Hooters.com, or download the app right now. And upon checkout, grab the latest calendar. As of right now, guys, the 2023 Hooters calendar is out. Grab the calendar, guys. Grab some amazing food. Order in FFC20, Hooters.com to save. All right, guys? Subscribe, thumbs up. Let's get to it. Now, we're going to go over the top 10 players here, of course, for 2023. Before I do that, let's talk practical strategy on how to select your keepers before I get in this top 10 list. Then as I'm going through the top 10 list, like, it kind of makes sense. He's, in line with what he's telling us, all right? So it's very important. Now, one thing that I'm very good at is spotting out potential breakouts, okay? And I like youth, right? There's a system I created called the Cuddy system, right? Consistency, upside, durability, depth, and youth. And what ends up happening is a lot of players tend to pick up or keep players that are in a regression point of their life or in their career, right? They pick up players that, like a Julio Jones or a popular name like Odell Beckham Jr., where, years to hours were not out as of late, and they're on that downward trend of their career. You don't want to do that when it comes to keepers. You want to keep players that are in their prime or going to hit that stride or are in a contract year. So there you go. There's big strategy right there. So take a look at contract years. Has the player been paid and incentivized? Going back this past year, Barkley and Jacobs looking for that big contract. How'd they do? They did pretty darn well, didn't they? It's very simple, guys. You got to look for those hungry players that are in for potential contracts or could get contracts or big contracts down the road. So contract years and hunger is a big thing for me. Then I look at talent, of course. How good is the player? Then there's another thing you got to look at is volume. Is this an RB1 or wide receiver 1 on their team, right? How much volume are they going to get? So there's a huge strategy when it comes to this when you're selecting keepers, but a big part of it is youth, hunger. Are they going to get paid? Are they in for a contract year? And how much volume? I mean, that's pretty much a big magic formula that I look at when I'm looking at keepers, okay? So that's pretty much a strategy. Now let's go through these 10 keepers. I'm going to be implementing more strategies. I'm talking, through these, but it's very important that you guys take some notes mentally or write them down, whatever you guys want to do. And again, this is really, really going to help you guys when you guys are making your selection for your keepers for 2023 and beyond, all right, guys? Now, again, some of the people, by the time it's recording, we are at the end of the 2022 season. We are heading into week 16. So some of these stats may change. God forbid, some of these players I'm mentioning may get hurt. So accommodate guys accordingly, right? Start using some common sense. Common sense is not that common. And I want you guys, especially as followers of this channel and listeners, and people that get the 16-round draft solution, if you guys haven't got it and you're listening to this in April, May, June, July of 2023, make sure you grab the 16-round draft solution. It will help you guys crush your leagues. But I'm telling you guys, when you're talking strategies here, you got to use common sense, right? When you're making selections, especially in fantasy football, to make the right decisions, okay? So I'm going to go over this top 10 list here. And again, things could change, okay? And they're going to change. This is very early. Again, we're talking week 16 of the 2022 season, but I'm doing some evergreen content or some content that's going to go into 2023 because we go year round here, so make sure you guys are subscribed. First player I really like as a keeper or a guy you may want to target, if he's available in your leagues. I'm sure he's not. He's a top 5 quarterback this year. What can I tell you? The guy I'm talking about here is Trevor Lawrence, okay? Now, at the end of this list, I got some more obvious ones, but the first 5, not as obvious. Maybe Trevor Lawrence, you could say, is. But why do I like him? I'll tell you why. Okay, week 9 to 16, right? 14-1 when we're looking at touchdown to interception ratio, okay? He's got 2 rushing touchdowns, not the greatest, not bad. But I kind of like the balance. He doesn't run as much as like a Jalen Hurts, but he does run, which is nice. Again, not a lot enough that I'm worried that he's potentially going to get hurt, running the ball. He's not putting up running back 1 numbers. But the nice thing about it is he's currently sitting number 5 amongst quarterbacks with 280 points. Again, this is 16 weeks in. He actually ended up playing the early games during the week. So the Sunday games haven't happened at the time of recording. So we're looking at pretty much for the rest of the guys 15 weeks in for Lawrence because he played 16 weeks in. So Trevor Lawrence, 16 weeks in, again, top 5 in fantasy points, not bad. When you look at it from an attempt standpoint, when I look at a quarterback, I like the attempts, 531, which puts him 5th amongst quarterbacks. That's very nice to look. 24-7 on the season when you're looking at touchdown interception ratio. That's something I look at, and I look at overall fantasy points. Now, when I look at his rushing attempts, 56, right? It's not overly high. It's not overly low. It's right in the mix there, which I like. Puts him in the top 10, number 9. Pretty much tied in and around the same area where like a Geno Smith is, 56 attempts. So that's something that I look at is rushing attempts because I want to get those extra yards on the ground. Again, I'm not depending on him to do that, but I want an ultra-efficient quarterback that's young and hungry. I think Trevor Lawrence fits the bill for that. So when you are looking at a quarterback for 2023, maybe even in drafting one, Trevor Lawrence could be completely viable because he's been super consistent. Again, from week 9 to 16, super consistent. His lowest points scored was 16.36 points. I think that was in week 13. So very hungry, very young, very dynamic. Got some young receivers around him. I think they're going to continue to build around him. But Trevor Lawrence, obviously a great pick for a keeper going into 2023 if you want a quarterback, all right? Second guy here, the guy that I called out this year, and everybody was talking about, everybody and their mother was talking about Rashad Penny. I said, Rashad Penny, years to wow us, we're not wowed. But the guy that was drafted in the 2nd round, I'm like, pick this guy on your roster and stash him. But I think he'd be a solid keeper in a position at running back where running backs are so few and far between. The committee approach is more and more prominent, and it continues to thrive in a place where we want those running backs that are going to get the volume. But again, in the defense of the NFL teams, running backs go down with injury a lot. So the guy that I really like, and he went down with a little bit of an injury kind of in and around week 13, 14, I think it was 14, 15, and around 13 and 15. Kenneth Walker, right? Absolutely love him. Either way, young, dynamic, 2nd-round pick by Seattle, emerged 5'9", 210 pounds, averaged 4.6 yards per carry, 696 yards as, 15 weeks in. Again, missing a couple games. It didn't get started, till what was it? Like week 5, 4, 5, 6, something like that. And when Penny went down, so Walker didn't really get going at the beginning of the season. Still managed to get 9 rushing touchdowns, 4.6 yards per carry in 12 games. I mean, that's not bad for a young, dynamic guy who, again, has so much upside, so much power, and can receive the ball. So Kenneth Walker, I love him. If you need a running back, why not keep a guy that's young, dynamic, and hungry that, could get a ton of volume? And that's what I like about him is the potential volume, is the potential upside. And I think, Seattle, they had some question marks this year with Geno Smith. Is he coming back as a quarterback next year? He did pretty well. So now they're going to be more integrated into the offense. And I think Walker does well again next year. So Kenneth Walker here, again, fitting that bill, young, dynamic, hungry, contract year down the road, upside, you got everything, volume. Kenneth Walker is another guy I like. Third guy here, thanks Captain Obvious, but I got to talk about him because he's still a guy that, people might say, well, do I want to keep him? But I like Jalen Hurts at number 3. Thanks Captain Obvious, you're saying. There's got to be obvious names for keepers because when you're keeping somebody, you want them to be really good. And I think Hurts genuinely is the future if he continues to stay healthy. That's a big thing. Going into week 16, his shoulder's a little bummed out. It is what it is, right? It happens. But he's, set his team up for playoffs. He's good to go. And what I like about him, again, is I've got an amazing combination of rushing, a lot of rushing, which is absolutely amazing. And I've still got the passing, 22 touchdowns to 5 interceptions on 14 games of 2022. Again, I'm going on that right now. Again, I did this video a little early, everybody, so I didn't include all the stats by the end of the year. I want to get content out at the end of 2022, give you guys something to watch during Christmas and listen to. By the way, Merry Christmas, everybody. At the time of this recording, it's the 23rd today. Can't believe it. Christmas crept up. This year kind of flew by. But Jalen Hurts, again, getting it done all categories, 156 rushing attempts, which put him number 1 amongst quarterbacks. Again, that's kind of always been a fear of mine. I don't get scared much, but having my running back run this much, but he's, knock on wood, he's a strong, durable guy, right? Like, he kind of reminds me of, I guess, more versatile, though, but Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck was kind of built like an ox. He used to run, but I didn't feel that he was, I didn't feel that I was worried so much about Andrew Luck, I kind of feel the same way about Hurts, knock on wood. I feel he's more of a strong, robust guy. When you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, I look at his legs, he looks a little skinnier. I'm like, he's going to take a hit. He's kind of wiry. With Hurts, I feel a little more confident in his runs. He slides when he needs to, runs out of bounds when he needs to, makes smart plays downfield. He's got good receivers that are, pushing the defenses back, spreading the defense back, opening things up for him. I like Hurts. Again, I just like the opportunity, pretty much number 1 in fantasy points this year. If you got him, if you need a quarterback or if you decide between a quarterback and a running back, you're pretty much getting both, right? You might as well keep Hurts. I think the future is bright for him. I absolutely love him, okay? Number 4 here, another guy maybe you may not want to consider keeping, but you may want to after this discussion, but Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, we have Mooney who went on IR. The receiving core, hasn't been there. The offense, suspect, coaching, quarterback needs a good team around him. And I think they're going to build around him more now that they know that he can be that franchise guy. Because that was a big question mark going into 2022. But into 2023, this is something that they need to address and need to build around Justin Fields. And I think he's going to be the guy. But what's mind-blowing here is when you look at his rushing numbers, 143 attempts, 1,000 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns. So, yes, he's not getting it done in the passing. 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Again, we're talking 13 games played, based on these stats, right? Because there's that bye week and maybe he missed a week here and there. So that I'm looking at games played at the end of 2022. But Justin Fields looks good. Again, the passing is not there. I need more passing yards. I need more passing touchdowns. I need that 15 to 10 touchdown interception ratio to improve. But Justin Fields literally is a guy that is going to give you guys fantasy points, bottom line, and he gets it done on the ground. 6th in fantasy points, again, 15 weeks in with 13 games played, or just under 270 fantasy points. This is what I like to see. But again, he is making that up with rushing. This is very important, rushing yards, okay? Now, when you put that in perspective, this is like Dalvin Cook, CMC. He's got more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey on the season and on par with like a Dalvin Cook, which is pretty wild and remarkable for a quarterback to put up these numbers. But again, we've seen that. We're not, we've been desensitized to this in regards to seeing, Lamar Jackson do this before and other running backs. But Justin Fields, a guy that, if you need a quarterback that you can anchor your team with a ton of upside, get him. But any quarterback, I always say this, get yourself a backup quarterback with upside to back him up anyway, because again, you always want to cover that injury, all right? So we got Trevor Lawrence, Kenneth Walker, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. We talked to 3 quarterbacks here. Let's get into some running backs here, some wide receivers. Again, the last 5 here, a little more obvious, but I'm going to go Breece Hall, and then I got 5 more. But again, you got to give you guys some obvious guys too, because if they're on your roster, you definitely want to keep them. And if the 10 that I mentioned here aren't on your roster, you definitely want to follow the strategy that I've been talking about and kind of looking at my mindset on how to keep certain players or what they need to be worthy to be on your roster, okay? If that makes sense. All right, number 5 here. This one's a little scary and it may scare a lot of people, but Breece Hall. This is a guy that had 5.8 yards per carry in 7 games played. We're talking about a phenomenal running back who was doing really well when he was playing prior to getting hurt. Now, he had 4 rushing touchdowns, was going to be a workhorse back and get it done in the receiving game, big catch radius, phenomenal talent, dynamic, explosive. Breece Hall, torn ACL. Now, you look at the healing time of an ACL, you're looking at 6 to 9 months, sometimes as long as 12 months. Fortunately for him, it happened early in the season. We're talking October. I think it was October. It was 7 weeks in. So you're looking at a torn ACL, but you're looking at a young, hungry guy who may, even if he starts next season, may not get fully going till at least 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season next year. We don't know. And even if he does get going, is he going to be ultra efficient and at the top of his game? That's a big question mark, right? But we're talking long-term. We're thinking dynasty. And again, you're looking at a position where running backs are few and far between. Am I giddy about him? No, the torn ACL obviously is a big turnoff. But if you're looking at a keeper, you're looking at dynasty, you're looking at future, maybe you're rebuilding a team in your dynasty league and you want a guy, 2 years down the road that could be solid and sufficient and above par, you got Breece Hall, man. And this is a guy that you definitely want to stash on your roster, potentially keep. The talent and upside is there, okay? Number 6 here, another running back out on IR, ankle banged up. Either way, I think he'll be 100% next year. 100% he'll be 100% next year. But Dameon Pierce played 13 games, 4.3 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, one receiving touchdowns, 30 receptions, just under 1,000 yards on 220 attempts, 939 yards on the ground. Again, 220 attempts for a young guy with 13 games. That's great volume on a suspect offense whose receiving core was banged up. The quarterback situation was a disaster with Davis Mills not getting going. The coaching of Lovie Smith was lackluster to say the least. We're looking at an offense that struggled the entire season to get any type of momentum going. Their defense, had some flashes of that these guys could, hold it together defensively, but offensively, the Texans just couldn't get it done. But you look at a guy like Dameon Pierce, who is an anchor on the team, and a guy that is the rock to a piece of that core offense that could be sufficient. I don't see Brandon Cooks coming back next year. There's going to be a quarterback change. They're probably going to get, an early pick on a quarterback next year. Davis Mills, I don't see him. He's not the future. Didn't look like it this year. They're going to have to beef up the wide receivers. But either way, get a young, dynamic, top quarterback coming out of the draft. You pair him up with some great receivers. We've seen other teams do that. We've seen it with Miami, with Waddle and Tua. We're seeing it with the Jets. We see it with so many teams now with the nice pairing of the young quarterbacks. You're seeing it with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You're seeing it now, and I really think Houston's going to start doing that, and they got the core. And I really feel Dameon Pierce is a guy that's going to be an awesome and amazing anchor at the running back position next year, who's going to be primed for a ton of volume. So Dameon Pierce, if you got him, you definitely want to keep him. I'm going to rapid fire the next 4. I mean, their names, it goes without saying that you want to keep them. Justin Jefferson, young dynamic. He's due for a big contract. I think he's got to play out another year next year, and then he's going to be in line. In 2 years, he's completely a free agent, so they're going to want to lock him in. So he's got one more year on his rookie contract next year. Then they're going to renew it, and he's going to get paid big time. So look for him to continue to thrive, barring any type of injury. Jefferson's a must keeper. So Justin Jefferson, a definite keeper for next year. He gets the volume, the opportunity, the talent, young, hungry, contract year down the road. Justin Jefferson. Next guy here, guys, is A.J. Brown. Obviously, A.J. Brown, that rapport is going to continue to build with Jalen Hurts towards the future, right? That connection is going to continue to build. A.J. Brown's been phenomenal. He's got a good quarterback with him. That connection is going to be going. The two of these guys are going to be going for years. Definitely want to keep him for at least another year because I still see this performance continuing. So A.J. Brown, another keeper. 2 more guys here definitely want to keep is Tyreek Hill. That, I think he's still got another couple years of solid performance out of him. Young, dynamic, and he's, that connection with Tua can only get better. I mean, they've hit such a high ceiling, but that's going to continue to grow. And the last guy here, how many good years does he have left in him? As long as Mahomes is there and he's healthy, Travis Kelce to round out the top 10 here. Absolutely phenomenal. When you're looking at tight end, it's Travis Kelce and everybody else. Everybody thought Mark Andrews would have a good year. Didn't perform the way that he did, that he should have, right? A lot of guys, George Kittle, right? Pat Freiermuth. None of these guys performing where they should. You have Travis Kelce and everybody else. Travis Kelce, 277 PPR fantasy points. The closest second here from a fantasy perspective was Evan Ingram with 166. You got 110-point gap between the top tight end, which is Kelce, and the next guy. I mean, Kelce, I don't see any signs of slowing down. I mean, he's due. But I don't know when. So either way, if you got Kelce, you want to anchor your team with an ace player. Kelce's it, right? Tyreek Hill, again, with Tua, young dynamic quarterback, that connection. A.J. Brown, so you got young quarterbacks here in these situations, and the scenarios look ideal. It's kind of like the perfect storm for these wide receivers, and including Kelce with the tight end, because he's got the luxury of Mahomes. So, again, they're in a system that works, right? And that's why you definitely want to keep these wide receivers there in this top 10 list, all right? So, when you're making a decision, guys, make sure you guys get those volume getters, the guys that are going to perform on a high level, and they're going to continue to perform on a high level, and they're young and they're hungry. Now, some of these guys got paid. You're saying, well, Joe, A.J. Brown's got paid before Kelce. I know, but they're still young and dynamic enough in a situation to thrive, okay? The rest of the guys, tons of hunger, and they still need to get paid and incentivized, all right, guys? Hope you enjoyed the show. Subscribe, thumbs up. And again, when you're looking at keepers, Dynasty, Fantasy Football Dynasty keepers, take a look at those things. Contract year, volume, opportunity, talent, situation. All this is going to help you. At the end of the day, go with your gut and make the right decision, because it's your fantasy team, it's your franchise. Make the right decision. All right, guys? I appreciate it. Thumbs up. Drop any questions below you may have. And, of course, guys, join the Patreon group, patreon.com/FFcounselor. Go join the community right now, the front lines. We'll talk soon. I'm out.